I was calling it today. Um, the first one, I was thinking about growing fruit. This is for outdoors, and you can have a look at this picture. This is a trained fruit tree, which is against a trellis. And I don't know if you can see there, but there's a tall vertical trunk of the tree, and then the lovely branches are being trained along the trellis to go out horizontally. So that makes a nice way to make the fruit tree grow, give you lots and lots of fruit, but it takes up very little space flat against the wall there. If you've got in Scotland, if you have an indoor space, a conservatory or a glass house, you might want to try growing peaches. I know that they can be very successful and they're certainly delicious. Peaches are just gorgeous. So you can grow fruit outdoors and indoors, and think about growing them up against a wall and training them in this kind of way. I was also thinking about vines. I spent a good number of years living in Kent, and that is full of apple tree orchards, but also hop fields. And they grow the hops up these huge high poles, which are about 12 foot high, and they're strung together with wires. So the hop vines grow in a season, they grow right up the pole and right along the wires. And so that's the picture. You're looking from the ground up into the sky here, up these tall poles, like telegraph poles. And these are the hop vines. But it would be a lovely thing to grow if you had a pergola or something that you wanted to use to cast a bit of shade over. And here are the fruits of the hops. Here, perhaps you might want to brew your own beer, but they're very pretty anyway. The lovely limey green flowers there. So that's hops, something to consider. A climber. If beer isn't your drink, then perhaps wine. If you have if you have a conservatory, or a very sheltered place in the garden, perhaps you could try growing some grapevines. They're lovely, and it's always very exciting if you get some grapes on the vine. For a very warm conservatory, you could try growing some of these lovely melons. And there's another picture I had that I haven't put in here, but the melon was so heavy that they had to have this sort of like a string kind of basket to hold it up. It was strung up just to stop it from falling off. But they look fantastic. And you just wonder how they managed to bear that weight, you know. It's quite interesting how the plant manages to hold on to that melon. But that's a bit of an exotic for your glass house and your greenhouse. And I just had to share this with you. If you look very closely at this picture, you'll see it's actually an outdoor kitchen with a wine fridge. But that wasn't the attraction for me. It was actually the wall of salad behind it. I thought this is fantastic. So you can be making your dinner outdoors, and you can just pick your salad from the walls. So if you like salad, and I think I can see beans growing up here across the top. It looks like a sort of an open work roof here that they might put. I don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of roof that is. It might have been a polytunnel at one time, but anyway, there's looks like runner beans growing up this one, and but anyway, there's all sorts of leaves growing in these vertical walls, which is a fantastic looking array of things. I'm not sure what that is. It looks like a citrus or a lemon tree in the foreground there on the right-hand side. And I think I can see some nasturtiums, but Joan will say more about that later. And I wonder if any of you can guess what these are. So this was a great surprise. I was going searching for some inspiration today, and I found this and I thought, oh, what a fabulous picture. You can grow these indoors and outdoors if you have a very warm place. You can grow them outdoors in Scotland, and they're actually loofahs. So if you've ever wondered where your Bath loofah comes from, it's grown on a tree. There you go. And this is actually lovely pictures from one of our field workers, Emma Martindale, who was involved in growing loofahs at one of the projects that she actually gardens at. So this is the loofah harvested here on the very left-hand side, and you just break off the sort of shell that's round about it, and inside is this the loofah sort of material, the rough material. You can see it's kind of long and cylindrical, and it's got 3 holes in it, and you can use that to scrub your back in the bath. You can use it to scrub your dishes as well if you wanted. So it's really quite interesting. So if you fancy something a little bit different, no, you can't eat it, but I was just wanted to share that with you. Try growing a loofah. They're quite easy to grow from seed, I believe. I'm going to come out of this share now, and I'm going to hand you over to Joan, who's going to do today's demonstration. Joan.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Gosh, yeah, loofah. I've never grown a loofah, but maybe that is a bit of a challenge. And I think that was a polytunnel that looked like it had its plastic coating taken off of it.
Yeah,
And wow, that's a lot of salad, isn't it?
it is,
That's
yeah.
I'm hoping they were going to have a big party and lots of people were going to come and lots of salad cream to go with it as well. But anyway, lovely photographs. Thank you. That's got us off to a good start. But before I started this, when I was starting planning for this session, I started to think about the climbing plants themselves and how alike they are to us, or how alike we are to them. At the moment, I'm planting up a new border in my garden, and I'm choosing plants based on aspects, soil type, and so on, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I'm really thinking about how they'll look and how they'll get on with the new neighbours once they're all planted and living together. And in time, I'm hoping that my choice of plants for the border will look great, with the plants with similar needs grouped together, and the ones that need space to be on their own have enough space to do their own thing, a bit like us. Some prefer lots of company with like-minded friends, others prefer a quieter lifestyle. So back to the climbing plants that really are ground creeping plants that only start their climbing habit once they come across something to climb up. Climbing is a parasitic trick that saves the plant the unnecessary effort of making a stem or trunk. And in short, they're lazy plants, I guess. But of course, climbing upwards allows the plant to get closer to the light to support photosynthesis. And the open, sprawling nature of their growing habit helps improve air circulation, which in turn helps reduce disease. And along with having healthier and potentially more productive plants being a benefit to us, having the plants in taller supports means that the vegetables or the fruits or the flowers, whatever it is that's growing on the supports, are far easier for us to get to and harvest. And of course, from a design point of view, a tall wigwam or obelisk really helps introduce vertical interest to a garden space. So the climbers seek out the light, and natural light is fundamental to our physical and mental health. And being in natural light regularly has a positive effect on our sleep, mood, and cognitive performance. So I guess that sums up one of the reasons why gardening is good for us. Sunlight lifts mood, can boost motivation, and help control seasonal affective disorder. And interestingly, according to the website Student Space, the availability of sunlight has been shown to have more impact on mood than rainfall, temperature, or any other environmental factor. I think that's good, but I really don't think they did the research in the west of Scotland, because the rain that we've had in the last few months, I think we would have been like that, no rain. Anyway, so just like the climbers, we seek out the daylight and snatch rays of sunshine. Now, I don't know what the weather's like with you. It is blowing a hoolie here. The windows in my hut are actually shaking, so they are. But the sun is out. It's absolutely glorious. and my back is roasting because the sun is shining in the window. So I'm definitely getting my fair share of sunlight today. So Jenny's inspired us with some climbers. So I'm just going to move my laptop and get on with doing some sewing of climbers. So Jenny, can you see me okay here now? Yep.
I can. I'm just spotlighting you, Joan, so
All
everyone
right,
can
okay,
see
that's
you.
great. Okay, so I'm going to demo a few things to get us started on our climbing edibles journey, and then I'm going to share some slides of some stuff that I've already been doing that's too big to show under my phone camera here just now. So first up, I'm going to talk about runner beans. I find them really easy to grow, and you only need a couple of plants to give oodles of beans, unless of course you want to have loads more to store, freeze over and to like thaw back out and use over the coming months. So I'm going to sow this runner bean variety called Scarlet Emperor, and these are the seeds here, the beans. They're absolutely beautiful. I mean, I think it's a bit of a shame we have to put them in the compost in the first place, but we get all the beautiful flowers and edible pods from them. So we'll admire them for a short while and then we will pot them up. So the compost that I'm using is a seedling compost. It's specific to the needs of a seed germinating and the needs of the developing seedlings. You'll see I'm breaking up the compost, one of my most favourite activities in relation to gardening. Just getting your hands in there, and it's very relaxing and I find it very therapeutic. I could stand and talk to you all day and just put my hands in the compost. So I'm going to take myself a wee 9cm pot, and I'm just using my hands, but we can use a teaspoon or we can use a wee mug, depending on your client group. And a girl that came along to a couple of our sessions sent me a link for these lovely little scoops. They come in a pack of 4. I got them off of a shop that many of us will be familiar with online, and they are absolutely brilliant. They're so light and they really do scoop up beautifully. So I've been taking them to lots of workshops that I've been delivering, and they've been going down an absolute treat. I've got a pink one, a green one, a blue one, an orange one. So one colour to suit absolutely everybody that turns up. Everybody can find their favourite in there. So I've got my compost in my pot. Just going to tap it on the table here just to settle the compost. Put in a wee bit more. Settle it again. You'll see some, which way will I go so you can maybe see it? There's marks round the top of the pot here. Those are called the watering lines or the watermarks. And the idea is you don't put the compost any higher than these water marks, which means that when you come to water the plant, I'm just going to dampen this compost just now, so I'll just demonstrate. You can squish as much water in there up to the rim, and the amount of water that has been collected in this space that was left here is the right amount of water that is required for this amount of compost in the pot. It also saves a lot of mess. If you've got your compost filled right to the brim and then we go to water it, the compost is going to, the watery compost is going to pour over the sides. So half the water is going to get wasted. You're going to have a mess, and the wee plant that was wanting a drink of water is only going to get half the water that it was due. So I've got my damp compost ready, and I'm going to take 3 beans, and if we go up here, if you can see, there's a wee white mark just on one side. You'll see there's not one there. It's like a wee belly button on the seed. That is where the root is going to come out of. So ideally, we're going to plant this bean belly button down, like so. I'm just going to press it in with my finger. just till it's out of sight. I'm going to put 3 in here, another one, belly button down, press it down, and then you'll see that the compost level has sunken now that the water helps settle it also. I'm just going to put in some more compost, give it a settle, making sure it's below the water line, give it another good drink, and always remember to label plant name and date, because it can get a bit busy on your windowsill if you've got lots of unlabeled pots. So this is my runner bean seeds ready to go on to the next stage. So where is my next stage? These are runner beans that I sowed just over a week ago. Let's check the date. The 21st of April. So that is 10 days ago, over a week ago. And you can see that the 3 of them, I put 3 in this pot, the 3 of them have all germinated, they've all sprouted, and they're looking quite happy to me. This is another wee one here just to show you. I've got 3 beans in here also. They're all sown at the same time, but just to demonstrate that they all do their own thing. And there's one not even appeared yet. I've got one that's just kept through yesterday, one that's been up for a day or two. I can see a bump coming in the compost here, so I'm hopeful that the 3rd one is going to pop up. But sometimes they don't always germinate, so don't get hung up if they don't always do. Always sow a couple of extra seeds, and if you've got too many, you can give them away, but at least you'll always have too many than having too little, I should say. So that's me got my beans there. So ideally you want to pop them onto a window. So runner beans can't go outside until all the risk of frost has passed. So if you are sowing them just now, you're going to have to keep them indoors, and the best way to germinate them is you can use a propagator, but you don't have to. You can make a wee sort of mini greenhouse out of a plastic freezer bag, put it over the pot, secure with an elastic band, or you can get one of these wee sort of plastic boxes. You get the big version that's your underbed storage type thing, and it's got its wee lid on it, so it does the exact same thing. It sort of like traps the heat and the daylight and the sunlight in there, and you can take the lid off to get rid of that condensation. And of course, as soon as the seedling germinates, you wouldn't keep it in this lidded environment any longer. So you take the lid off of it and let the plants grow, the seedlings grow upwards without being constricted by the lid or anything like that. So that's where this pot of runner beans will go, and they'll germinate in about 5 days, I would reckon. So I'll leave that there to the side. So runner beans, once they, I've got some sides later on that I'm going to show you runner beans that I've potted on to start climbing. But in the run up to putting them outside, I'm going to be growing my runner beans outdoors, but they're in the polytunnel at the minute. And I'm watching the weather forecast, and they're getting fleeced at night time if I feel it's going to go down to any cooler than 1 or 2 degrees. But once we get another couple of weeks, you can start hardening off your young plants. And hardening off means getting the young plants adapted, acclimatized to the outdoor conditions. So on a day like today, it's nice and sunny. You could put them outside for a couple of hours, have them in a sheltered spot so they're not getting battered by the wind as it is today. Or what I use is, again, those plastic underbed storage boxes without the lid on them. I put them in the plastic box so that they're getting plenty of light round about them from all directions, but that box is kind of protecting them a little bit from too much wind or anything like that. And then after a couple of hours, I'll bring them back indoors, and each day I just build up the amount of time that they spend outside until it comes to the point where I'm confident that all the chance of frost has passed, and then that's them, they're left to their own devices. They are outdoor plants from their own in. So Next thing I want to show you is the dwarf French beans. Now I'm not going to sow them because they're pretty much the same method of sowing and growing as the runner beans we've just talked about. But I really wanted to show you the packet because if anything, they're worth growing just to have all that colour in your garden. They're so interesting and they are very tasty as well and very healthy. Now, apparently, for us to get our 5 a day, you should just aim to have as colourful a dinner plate as possible. So there you go, you've got 3 of your 5 a day if you have a handful of each of these on your dinner plate at night time. And these French beans, slightly different looking to the runner beans. They're a wee bit more coconut husk shaped and coloured, but again, you can see the wee belly button. There's not a bit at that side and then round here, and that's where you would sew these belly button down into the compost. So I'll put them to the side. So next thing I want to show you that is a true creeping plant that, as I said, they're all creepers, they all creep along the ground, but given the opportunity to climb up something, that's when their parasitic nature kicks in and they do like that. I'm going to climb up you because I'm far too lazy to do it for myself. So this year I've always grown pumpkins. I think they're great fun if you've got lots of space for them. They take a wee bit longer to germinate and they need it a wee bit warmer. Your beans that I've just spoken about are kind of 15 to 20 degrees. Pumpkins need it 20 degrees plus to germinate. So other than that, they're easy to germinate. This variety that I'm sowing is called pumpkin small sugar. And the reason I'm going for a small pumpkin is I'm going to grow it. She says she's going to do it. I am hoping to grow it up a trellis just for fun, just to see how it works, and if it fails, well, there's no harm done. So these seeds here, these are your pumpkin seeds, and there is a downside. The slightly more pointy side is the downside if you're potting them into the compost, but they are quite difficult to make out. So the best thing to do is plant them in sideways, and then regardless of which way you put it in sideways, the wee root hole is pretty close to popping out. Don't plant them. I'll just fill a thing of compost here, that would be easier. Same thing, composting. I'm still using the seedling compost here. I'll just do 3 pots because pumpkins, and you'll get 2/3 of your pumpkins to germinate. That's how many normally germinate for me. We'll just tap these down, give them a good drink of water. So if I sow that lying flat like so, compost goes on top, more water goes on top, there's a chance that it could rot. There's more shell attached to available. There's more space of the shell to catch water, for water to sit on, and the seed shell could rot before anything happens. Whereas if I put it in sideways, like so, water will always drain down through the compost, going past the actual shell itself, keeping it dry. So I'm going to put 2 in each wee pot. The reason being, I'm sure my germination rate won't be 100%, so I'm hoping to get at least 1 to germinate out of each pot. Oh, that went in a wee bit flat. So just going to pop in my labels when I've got them here. A bit more compost over the top. We're aiming for them to be a good 1 to 2 centimetres down. Just level off the compost again. Give it a tap. Another drink. And these will go in my wee plastic box also. As I say, they take a wee bit longer. These might take a good 10 days to germinate. 10 days to germinate. So these are pumpkin seeds that were sown on the same day as the runner beans, the 21st of April. And you can see this wee one has just peeked out. You can see its wee seed shell still attached to it. This pot here, there's nothing happening in it. So I don't know what's happening in here, but time will tell. But one has definitely germinated, which I'm pleased with, but we'll wait and see what will happen. I'll keep this one for another week. I won't give up on it. I'll wait until I'm convinced there's nothing happening in there before I rule it out completely. But what I do have somewhere, yes, is a wee bit older pumpkin. And this is the pumpkin that I'm hoping is going to start to sprawl up the trellis. And as I say, I've got an image that I can show you of it beside its trellis in a wee while. So it's a wee bit more mature, as you can see. This wee baby one here is just quite literally, this is its seed leaves, its embryonic leaves just appearing. And then over the coming days and weeks, its baby leaves will grow bigger like this here, but then it'll start to put on true leaves, which are the more scalloped shape of the pumpkin that you'll probably recognise. And once it puts on a wee bit more growth, it'll be able to start tying into the trellis and it'll start working its way up. But it'll surprise you how quickly this plant starts to sprawl and grow. It'll be a good few months before I get any pumpkins from it, but the rate of growth they put on is unbelievable. And I think that's what I said at the beginning. Pumpkins are fun to grow if you've got a lot of space. So that's my pumpkin. Next, cucumber. Right, cucumber plant. Here we go. This is a young cucumber plant that I bought out of the garden centre. I've never grown cucumber from seed, and the reason being is because one plant really does me all summer, because really it's amazing how many cucumbers you get. One cucumber a day off of one plant. So I don't bother buying myself a packet of seeds. I just buy myself one plant. I do grow my cucumbers indoors inside the polytunnel, but they will grow outside in Scotland in a sheltered sunny spot. Just check your varieties. Some varieties are more suited to indoors growing and some are more suited to outdoor growing. So this isn't seedling compost. This is a mix of my homemade garden compost and a bag of shop bought general purpose compost. So I've already filled it so far, and I'm just going to actually pop the pot and plant in here, and I'm just going to fill it up. Just set up a wee bit of space here. So I'm just going to fill the compost in and around. Again, you could use a big mug if it's easier for your folks to do this, if they feel more confident doing that. And of course, as usual, I don't have my gloves on, but please do as I say, not as I do, and wear gloves when you're working with compost and whatnot. And if you don't, because you're like me and you want to get your hands dirty and actually feel enjoy the tactile experience, always make sure you wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. So I've got my compost filled up to the level where the compost is inside the little pot. And you might have noticed that I'm maybe a good 3 centimetres, an inch all the way down shy of the rim of the pot. And this is giving me my watering level again. Now, cucumbers don't like their roots being faffed about with. So this is another good reason for keeping it in its pot just now. So I'll pull the pot out. I've got my perfect planting hole ready for it. I'll pull my label out and pop it in the side so I don't forget what it is. I'm going to squeeze the bottom of the pot gently to encourage the roots all to come out. And without touching the roots, I'm just going to let it slide back down into its wee hole and gently pop it down. Firming round about. I'm not pressing down too hard. I want it to feel very loved and cared for. So, cucumbers are dead easy to grow once they get growing. But to begin with, they can be a wee bit fickle with their watering. They require a lot of water. Cucumbers are almost, I don't know, it's like 85 or 90% water anyway. So they need a lot of water to get themselves growing. But we've got to be really careful that the stem doesn't get wet, the leaves don't get wet, especially in this very early stage of growing. So this is the plastic pot that the wee plant has just came out of. I'm going to cut the bottom off of it. You can maybe do this in advance if your client group aren't so adept with scissors, or this could be an activity to do in advance of potting up your cucumbers. So I've now got a pot. I've basically made a collar out of this wee pot. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed the leaves carefully, gently through there. Pop it down. Just make sure that those ones are coming up the way. And I'm just going to wiggle this over the wee root ball where it was going to go. And you can see that the stem, maybe you can't actually see, you can see that the stem is now in the middle of the pot, of its collar, and the leaves are growing up and over. And when I'm not going to water in here just now, just because it's going to be too messy and I need a big watering can, but I've got a little one here just to show you. I'm going to water all the way round about the collar, and the water will go down and the roots will get the water, because that's what takes up the water. The leaves don't take in water, the stem doesn't take in water. We're aiming the water purely, directing it straight to the roots, and that helps keep the leaves and the stem as dry as possible. Now you will get a wee bit of spray of water going about, but that's okay, that's acceptable. Just avoid watering the cucumber stem as much as you can. Okay, so that's my cucumber. The last thing I'm going to show you here is my edible climbing flower. And Jenny mentioned them earlier on. So it is the nasturtiums. Now this is an edible climbing flower, and the nasturtium is probably one of the easiest annual flowers to grow, and easily one of the most colourful as well. And the leaves and petals are edible. It tastes quite sharp, a wee bit rocket-like, but a few scattered through a salad really do add a wee bit of zing and zest to it. So it is another easy to handle seed. Nice and round. There's no right way, there's no preferred up or down way with nasturtiums like some of the previous ones I've talked about. And nasturtiums are such good doors. They'll self-seed everywhere, so they will. So I'm not going to use seedling compost for the nasturtiums. I'm going to just use general purpose compost. And this is a pot of general purpose here. I'm just going to, again, using my hands, naughty, give it a tap, settle it all down. break up some clumpy bits. And I think I'll put about 6 in here. I'm just going to pop them down all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 in the middle, 6. A bit more compost. Now, I didn't water this compost because, as I say, nasturtiums will survive almost anywhere. Label in nasturtiums, today's date, and I'll now give it a bit of a water. Now, these don't need to go into my plastic box. In fact, I can sit these outside. These will germinate beautifully outside for me. And if I did have them sitting on the windowsill indoors, they would probably germinate in 4 or 5 days easily at the moment. And then they will grow into lovely looking little plants, something like this. So what I've got here is, this is an old hanging basket, a plastic hanging basket that I don't have. I've still got the chain somewhere, but I'm not using it as a basket. So I've got my compost in it, and I'm going to make a bit of a nasturtium wigwam. So I'll just put some more compost in. Again, this is just quite cheap and cheerful multi-purpose that I've got in here. And I'll just mention just now, we're going to have a follow-up session to this one where we talk about like the ongoing care and we talk about feeding. But nasturtiums never feed a nasturtium plant. All you'll do is you put on lots of green leaf, which is nice if you want lots of leaves for your salad, but it's at the expense of the flowers. Just let them get on with it. Keep them actually on the slightly dry side of, we're always talking about make sure and keep your compost damp, But again, nasturtiums can afford to be left quite dry for days at a time. And then if they get a deluge of rainwater, that's good, or a watering, that's great. But don't get too hung up and being too kind to them. So I've got my compost in, and I'm now going to take some canes. Now this is going to be a wee bit tricky just because you can't see all of this, but I'll move it and you'll see it in a minute or two. Got 5 canes, and I'm just going to place them relatively evenly round inside the rim of the compost. And I'm going to take myself a bit of string and a pair of scissors. You can't actually see this bit just now, but you'll see the bottom of the canes getting pulled in together. We'll show you the top in a wee minute. And I've just quite literally, so the canes are all creating this wigwam shape. And I'm taking my string and I am tying them at the top. I've got a slide that shows canes tied at the top, so you'll get a closer look at that in a wee minute. Just slip this down and you'll get to see it. Oh, well, oh no, you can't see it without all the compost falling out. You're not going to see, so we'll not try and do that. What I do have, when I sit this on the ground outdoors, the canes are going to be kind of a shape at eye height when I sort of bend over to pick the petals and the leaves off it. So I want to make sure that I don't poke my eyes with the canes. So you can buy these wee sort of cane toppers out of the garden centres, or you could use a yogurt pot, or I've got a little pot here, and I put some, can you see the sellotape? I've put sellotaped across the top of it, and I've left a wee hole here, and that is what I'm going to jam through the top of my canes, like so. And the sellotape stops it from blowing off in the wind or anything like that. And I've now got a lovely, it looks like a wee sort of like garden gnome. Now I could make some eyes up here and give it some hair. I've got a lovely wee safety thing on top of the canes. So I've now got my canes to grow my nasturtiums up. And I'm just going to pop a nasturtium out. I'm going to just wiggle a wee hole pop it in, and I'm going to have one planted beside each cane. I'll give it a good water. I'll take it outside, get it into where I want it to be. Nasturtiums will be as happy as Larry outside for the rest of the summer now. Don't worry. Even if we did get it quite cool, they'll cope with that, no problem. In a day or two, I'll check on them, and I'll maybe just take some string and I'll just loosely tie in a couple of stems just to encourage them on their way to grow upwards. Now, we do have a fact sheet on the website that you can download for free, how to make a nasturtium wigwam, and it shows, you know, different shapes and heights of wigwams that you can grow, and of course you can paint them. If I had more time, I might have painted these a nice jolly colour for you, so I didn't. I'm very sorry. But anyway, there we go. That's your the beginnings of a nasturtium wigwam. So I'm conscious of the time, Jenny, so I am going to jump back over to the desk and just quickly show the PowerPoint. Is that okay?
That's lovely. Thanks, Joan. I'm just going to take the spotlight off your desk and you get half a chance to get over to back to where you were. That's great. I'm just sending a message to say to everybody that we'll include that link in our follow-up email tomorrow. That's it. That's your slide.
Okay, groovy. Come on. Right, okay, so this is just I'll be very, very quick. It's mostly pictures anyway. Climbing edibles, here we go. So this is number one, my runner bean wigwam that I planted just over a week ago. I used 5 canes that were each 2.4 metre in height, inserted around the edge of the large pot. This pot is 40 centimetres in diameter and height with drainage holes. And the compost I've used was a mix of multi-purpose compost with my own homemade garden compost, which I'm very proud about. Jenny doesn't know about that yet. I'm going to bore her to tears one day with all of that. The canes are secured with string to create and maintain that wigwam shape and support. And as I said, with the wee pot there, or the yogurt pot, the canes were shorter and there was a risk that someone could poke their eye on the canes. Pop a yogurt pot over the top of the canes. And then number 4 is it's a 9 centimetre pot that I've just sewn the 3 runner beans into here today. That was the size of pot that had the 3 plants growing in it. And then we jumped to me separating the root ball. So I tore them very gently apart and I got the 3 plants separated, and then dug a little hole. I've got 5 canes, but I spread the 3 plants between the 5 canes and firmed the compost in and around the neck of the runner bean beside the cane to secure it. And then I tied with wee bits of string number 8 here. The plants they'll initiate their climbing and clinging characteristics once they realise they have something to cling on to. But to help get them started, use string to loosely tie around the stems onto a neighbouring cane. And of course, keeping the compost moist at all times is the most important thing just now as the plant develops its roots and stems. As I said, we'll look at feeding plants in our follow-up session. We really don't need to worry about feeding until the first flower buds appear on the plants. And the last picture here, number 10, within 2 days of planting, the stems had already learned to twine themselves around the canes. So runner beans are frost tender, as I've said. So this wigwam is staying inside the polytunnel just now, and I am watching for drops in temperature, and I will fleece it if need be. But by the end of May, I hope to get it outside and position it in a sunny, preferably sheltered spot. So next up is my broad beans. I collected some twigs from just my neighbouring woodland here when I was at a walk, and I've made a sort of cage structure to support the beans. Broad beans have got long tap roots, so make sure your container is at least 20 centimetres deep. The one that I've used is 30 centimetres in diameter and 25 centimetres deep. Again, general purpose compost mixed with my garden compost. And I've taken the twigs. What I did was I cut them down to about 60 centimetres, roughly 60 centimetres tall with my secateurs, and I've spaced 5 around the inside edge of the pot. And then I've taken a length of string and secured it in and around the twin twigs, making a bit of a cage. And these broad beans will grow to around 6 centimetres tall. And broad beans do stay fairly upright on their wee sturdy stems. The cage is more to keep them upright because they start to get a bit weighted over to one side with the weight of their really quite heavy bean pods once they are started to be produced. And number 4, I've planted 3 young plants into this pot. And I guess I should say, I did the twigs and the string first of all to make my cage. I've always done it that way. But it can be a wee bit of a footer. Planting number 5 here shows one of the individual plants going into a wee hole beside one of the twigs. You've got to sort of feed it through the string. But I find it easier to do it that way than planting them and then putting my twigs in and trying to wrap the string round about with the plants. Anyway, you can decide yourself there's no right way or wrong way of doing it, whatever suits you the best. So broad beans are really fast growers and they're much hardier than your runner beans. So my broad beans are actually now outside. So they are, but having said that, they've got a bit of fleece nearby. And if the weather forecast was to be cool, I would drape some fleece over them at night time, just because I'm a nice person. Sugar snap peas are my favourite peas to grow. They're really quick to grow. I mean, 6 to 8 weeks to harvesting from sowing if the weather conditions are perfect. But compared to like your regular garden peas, their production harvesting period is shorter. So maybe sow several batches of seeds over 2 months, basically, a couple of weeks apart, and you'll always have a supply of fresh peas right up until the end of September, October time. Now, the minute you pick a pea pod, the sugars start to turn to starch. So the only way to truly experience the taste of fresh peas at their best is to pick them fresh and use them straight away. So either eat them there and then, or have the kettle boiled in the pot, simmer away, and get them straight into the pot and have them for tea with a tiny wee dod of butter. Delicious. Picture number 3 here shows you the plant's tendrils quickly learn how to twine around their cane supports, and the more they twine around, the more they know to grow. So this is another reason why we support them to get twining to begin with, to encourage them to keep growing well. And of course, picking the pods, as soon as they do start to appear, they need to be watered regularly. Pick them as soon as the pod starts to swell. That's when they're at their tastiest. And of course, picking the pods regularly does encourage more flowering and pod production. Pumpkin. Oh, here's my pumpkin. So this is my trellis that I've made inside my polytunnel. It's attached with string to one of the cross bars, and I've got my pumpkin sitting in a tray, and I'm going to be watering into the tray so that the pumpkin's roots soak the water up from the bottom to avoid me spraying the leaves from the very top. So I've no idea how this is going to come about because it's the first time I've done it. But watch this space. I might plant another one elsewhere as well, just so I'm guaranteed a pumpkin later on in the year. Cucumber, we spoke about the cucumber. I demonstrated potting one up at the table here, but this one you can see I'm going to wrap it round a metal obelisk. So the one plant out there already planted will definitely do me. So this other one that I've planted, I will give to my mum maybe. So Mine is going to be growing indoors, unless we get a fabulous summer, in which case I will take it outside because I can, because it's in a pot. But if you are growing them outdoors, pick something like Marketmore or Burpless Tasty. They're two varieties of cucumber that are suitable for growing outdoors. So this plant has been potted into a 35cm diameter pot. It's 25 centimeters deep. Again, in a mix of my garden compost with general purpose compost. And as I said, cucumbers don't like their roots being faffed about with. So it just got popped straight into that wee hole. And as I showed you, I cut off the base of the pot and made a wee collar for it as well. And I'll just have to encourage it to twine all the way around this obelisk. Once it's got 7 to 8 leaves, I'll pinch out the growing tip, and that'll encourage more side shoots, which will help me be able to train it round the obelisk. So again, another one to watch. And lastly is my nasturtium tree. The last edible climber I want to tell you about is this nasturtium tree. It's actually a damaged branch off of a tree from one of the big winds that we had. And I wedged it into a large pot. It's a 40cm diameter, about 40 centimeters deep. And there's lots of wee bricks in there to sort of like wedge it. It's jammed in there. And then I infilled it with just a fairly basic general purpose compost. As I've said, nasturtiums are one of the hardiest wee plants around, so don't worry about the lack of compost available to them. They actually thrive in poorer conditions, so they'll probably do quite nicely in here. And I've already started to wind the stems around the lower branches of the broken tree branch, and that will support the stems and initiate their desire to start scrambling upwards. And I think time-wise, Jenny, I should stop talking. So please join us again on Zoom for our follow-up session. It's going to be on, Jenny will correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday the 13th of June at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Joan. I mean, we're going to be very healthy with that 5 a day beans, peas, and nasturtiums, and our 1 a day cucumber.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait. I can't wait till they come. That's brilliant. So we've got a couple of comments here. Someone was bringing up the fact that they had grown, who was it now? Marie, would you like to tell us about your nasturtiums and your cabbages, please?
Hello there.
Hello.
Yeah, so yeah, I love nasturtiums and I think they're great and they're really reliable, come back every time and self-seed and everything. But I had raised beds, I've raised vegetable beds, and they were made from pallets, and I had the kind of double end at the ends of the beds as planters. So at the end of one raised bed, I had nasturtiums growing out, which looked fab. Another one had strawberries growing out that looked great. But like 3 beds along, for the first time last year, I was growing sprouts and I had cabbage. And then I was listening to some other training thing, and they said, and remember, nasturtiums attract a host for cabbage white butterfly. And still I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So, however, then when the cabbage and everything started growing, there was these wee circles of eggs all over the sprouts, and I had to keep picking them off and everything. So they weren't in the same bed as the nasturtiums. The nasturtiums were like 3 beds away, but still, I don't know whether it was the nasturtiums' fault or not, but just in case, just make sure your wigwam is out the way from your cabbages.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Thank you for sharing that, because it's, yeah, you're right in what you're saying, and they are problematic if you're growing your brassicas, as you talked about. I don't have a cure other than don't grow nasturtiums, or as you say, keep them miles away or spend that time picking off. I guess it's that sort of balance between what you would prefer to grow, maybe. But no, thank you for bringing it up and sharing that. It's a good point.
Thanks. And just to say, the broad bean, I followed the fact sheet from before about the broad beans, and it's great. And it's great with a group. So it's an elderly residential group. And because the broad beans grow so fast, it was brilliant. So from sowing the seeds and then seeing them coming up, and exactly as you had done there, putting them in the round pot with the canes and putting the string around it, they were absolutely delighted. Yeah.
Great.
So, yeah, that's a good one.
Now, on that fact sheet, do we recommend a soup? Did I write in the soup that I make?
There's a pea and bacon soup when you're doing the pea shoots, but I don't think there's a soup with the broad bean.
Oh, right. I'll need to share that then. It's a broad bean and creme fraiche soup. It's delicious. It's broad beans and peas and creme fraiche. It's amazing. So if you're growing broad beans, that's a good one to do.
That's another one. Brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sounds delicious. Oh, absolutely delicious. Ria was asking, and she was mentioning bringing in branches instead of canes, which she showed us in a later picture. And Andy was saying that willow also makes a good cane replacement as well. So other ideas there for using canes and things to prop things up.
Good.
But no other questions, Joan, unless anyone has anything to ask. Just please pop up your hand and unmute and ask your question if you've got anything today. Or perhaps you'd like to share something that you've grown that's worked well as a climber with us. I think everybody's away to try it out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Maybe you be putting on bets if my pumpkins are going to grow up the trails.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I'm really intrigued to see how that works. It'll be great.
Oh dear. If at first you don't succeed, that's my attitude.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I know. Pumpkins always astound me in a garden. You know, it's like a huge surprise when it grows a pumpkin because it's just such a huge solid thing, isn't it? It's like, wow, how did that grow?
Yeah.
How did it?
It's a bit like the image of the melons that you showed to begin with,
Yes.
Jenny.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about, like people sort of like support them up with baskets where they hang string shopping bags below them and things like that.
Yeah.
I've got visions of me having to do this with these blooming pumpkins.
Oh dear. Lucy, you're mentioning something called, unmute and tell us what that is.
It's a chocha fat baby.
Oh, what's that?
So they're a little bit, I think they're in the pepper family, like the solanum family. And you can treat them, you can use them a bit like a pepper. So they're like small kind of green spiky fruits, but the spikes are not actually spikes, but they kind of look spiky.
Yeah.
And when they're ready, you squeeze them. They're only about sort of, I don't know, 2 inches. When they're ready, you squeeze them and they're kind of squidgy in the middle, and then you know that they're ready to pick. But it makes a really nice climber. And they're very quick to germinate as well. And it's essentially an annual. It's an annual climber, but they're quite good fun.
Okay.
And are they tasty? Can you eat them?
Oh, are they tasty? Yes, they are tasty. So you can use them, you can eat them raw, or you can eat them in stir fries or stews or things like that. So you treat them a bit like you would like a pepper almost. Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh, we're always learning something new on here. This is great. Very tasty. It's lovely. Oh, Claire, you're asking about growing courgettes. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, we had a go at growing courgettes up a trellis because they can get quite out of hand when they're grown flat on the floor. And they were okay to an extent, but we got quite confused with which bit we had to kind of tie up. So instead of them sprawling out that way, we kind of had like this massive thing growing in the polytunnel channel. So any advice on which bit do you trail up, or how to do it in a better way?
Oh gosh, right. Courgettes, I treat my courgettes, they just sprawl, as you say, they take up a
Yeah.
lot of space. And what I try to do with mine is I just let them grow, you know.
Right.
I grow them in pots on the ground. I've got a bit of tar out here, so I let them grow along the tar so that they don't get the courgettes don't lie on damp compost, so that they don't rot and so that the stems don't rot. Now, I do cut off excess leaves so that the fruits can ripen, but I don't actually inhibit the growth in any way. I just let it do its own thing.
Right.
So growing up a trellis, maybe it's a bit like the cucumber. Once you see, like, if you can identify the leader, sort of like nip out the leader, and that'll encourage side shoots. And then once you see a side shoot that's being very productive, nip it out as well, so it stops putting energy into making more green growth growing that way, and it energizes into the courgettes. But you tend to find it makes new courgettes on the new growth it's making. So you've got that sort of like, maybe I should grow a courgette up a trellis as well, and then learn from my mistakes so I can tell you the answers next year.